Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Monday, March 11th, 2013. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, and on YouTube my channels are ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this article, and this will kind of set the theme for the rest of the video. I covered it briefly, really briefly, before. But here we go. It says, revealed, the banker who shaped the modern financial world after World War II was a Soviet spy who wanted America to become communist. So Harry Dexter, this is the individual, White, Harry Dexter White, represented the U.S. at Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. He helped create the institutions which led to capitalism taking over the world. It says, but he harbored communist views and dreamed of Soviet domination. So why would they put this person, right? Unless he created a system that was similar to a communist-style system, right? Remember, we were just talking about two sides of the same coin, so that would make sense. You know, especially when you had what? You had the United States funding the Soviet, the Russian USSR system. They were funding the communists when they were about to collapse in the early 40s. So why would the U.S. and why would the Roosevelt do this? So it says here that it has now emerged that the brilliant economist was in fact a staunch anti-capitalist who privately praised the Soviet Union's communism. Documents unearthed at Princeton University prove that although White devoted his life to strengthening Western capitalism, he secretly despised the system he had created and believed it would eventually be overtaken by the state-controlled economy of the USSR and its allies. So the essay headed Political Economic International Future outlines a post-world where the Soviet socialist model of economic planning takes over from the American liberal capitalist one, according to an article by Mr. Stein in Foreign Affairs. Of course, there's John Maynard Keynes, who everybody thinks he's like a god, but most of these people represent the usury system. That's what they do. The unpublished notes argue that the West has demonized the Soviet Union. So the notes argue that the West has demonized the Soviet Union and dreams of a strong alliance between the U.S. and their communist rivals that would create a new world order. So White predicts the change will be in the direction of increased control over industry and increased restrictions on the operations of competition and free enterprise. So it's weird how they wrote that article to fit the black and white reality that they want the sheeple to believe in, right? Oh, see, we won. American capitalism and freedom won over the enslaved communists. No, we're enslaved. We're in this hyper system. It's like a hybrid, and we're not free. But that's the best part, is that we have the illusion that we're free. So the illusion of choices, right? No, it's highly regulated. You try starting up a business yourself and see how hard it is. Few insurers now cover services required in 2014 under healthcare law. So just 2% of health plans available to consumers in the private insurance market offer all the coverage that will become mandatory next year under the healthcare overhaul. So it goes on here and it says that the consumers and federal government might end up paying the cost of those new requirements and higher premiums. So it means only 1 in 50 plans are now in compliance with the main requirements of this Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, basically Obamacare. And that's what the system is all about. Taxpayers footing all the bills. It's privatizing profits and socializing the losses. I mean, this is what it's all about. You just call it corporatism. So every record Dow Jones point cost $200 million in federal debt. The past week brought us history. On Tuesday, Getco and Citadel's HFT algos were used by the primary dealers and the Fed to send the Dow Jones to all-time highs, subsequently pushing it to all new highs every single day of the week and higher on the 8 of past 9 days. So I don't like how Zero Hedge really writes this stuff. They get really technical and stuff. But it says here, but there was never such a thing as a free lunch. And here's the invoice. In the past 5 days alone, total federal debt rose from 16.6 trillion to 16.7 trillion as a moments ago, an increase of 61 billion in 5 days, amounting to, well, you go ahead and do that that numbering game. For every of the 307 Dow Jones Industrial Average points gained this week. So it says, remember, U.S. debt is the asset that allows the Fed to engage in monetization and as a result hand over trillions in reserves to banks, mostly foreign banks. And then comes, globalization. It says here, U.S. companies keeping even more money offshore. U.S. companies are keeping more of the profits, or their profits, offshore, choosing overseas tax havens amid talks in Washington about closing corporate tax loopholes. Talking, right? A lot of talk. That shield more than 40% of their annual profits from U.S. taxes, but they're American companies, right? Buy American. Fed injects record $100 billion cash into foreign banks operating in the U.S. in the past week. So it starts off with talking about Fed's direct bailout of European banks, also about this defeat of Bersani in Italy in the Italian elections, even more shockingly by Berlusconi, so leading to a political vacuum. It says, as of most, the recent H8 statement makes very clear it soared from $836 billion to a near record $936 billion, or $99 billion reserve reallocation in the form of cash, so into real European banks in 1 week. Then you have a record 89 million Americans not in labor force, so 296 million fewer employed since January. I just covered this, but I'll cover it again. Number of Americans designated as not in the labor force in February was 89,304,000, a record high. So the nation's unemployment rate decreased to 7.7%. So the White House is always going to be able to show that to the masses and say, hey, look at what we did. See? Look at what we did. The chart that proves that the mainstream media is lying to you about unemployment. The mainstream media is absolutely giddy that the U.S. unemployment rate is at a 4-year low of 7.7%, but is unemployment in the United States actually going down? After all, you'd think that it should be. So the Obama administration has borrowed more than $6 trillion from future generations of Americans. Interest rates have been pushed to all-time lows, and the Federal Reserve has been wildly printing more money in a desperate attempt to stimulate the economy. Sadly, as you will see below, the truth is that the percentage of the working-age Americans that have a job is just 0.1% higher than it was exactly 3 years ago. It says at this point the unemployment rate has become so meaningless that it really isn't worth paying much attention to. If you want to know what employment picture looks like in the U.S., you need to look at the employment to population ratio. So it defines the employment rate as the employment to population. So this chart includes people that have stopped looking for work. A chart of the employment population ratio in the United States over the past several years is posted below. They start off with 2008 when the wealth consolidation operation took place, and it was at 63%, and it plummeted in 2010 to about 58.5%, and it's stayed consistently the same since then to 2013. This is the first time in post-World War II era that we have not seen employment rate bounce back following a recession. So it says here, at this point, the employment population ratio has been below 59% for 42 months in a row. So you can see there's been no recovery. And here's some numbers here. You can go in there and check it out. It starts in, what is this? Yeah, okay. We'll start off down here. 2008, it was at 62.9%. That's the amount of people that basically were employed. Then you go down here, and it's at 58.6%. in 2013. You have more Americans giving up on saving for retirement in the wake of the, see, they call it the Great Recession. Like I said, the Great Wealth Consolidation Operation. That's what it really was. Retirement-minded Americans are feeling an unprecedented amount of futility. They are undersaved and worse, see little reason to do anything about it. So they found that 60% of pre-retirees believe healthcare costs will consume their savings no matter how much they save. Similarly, 39% believe investment returns won't be high enough to provide decent retirement income regardless of how much they manage to put away. So, pretty interesting. 58% don't have a retirement plan, 40% don't know what an annuity or mutual fund is, and 20% expect to rely purely on Social Security for their retirement. More than half don't trust anyone's advice. Then we have District rakes in $92 million from parking tickets. In a city that routinely deals in billions and trillions of dollars, $92 million might sound like a trifle, but for the way it was extracted, one parking ticket at a time. This is interesting, as though that amounted to about 125,000 fewer tickets than the year before, more people who received them paid the fines. because they were probably hassled to. So the bottom line of $92 million in revenue remained the same as in fiscal 2011. Ohio judge, traffic cameras are a scam against motorists. So this is from the Columbus Dispatch/AP. Southwestern Ohio judge yesterday ordered a halt to a speeding ticket blitz in a village that installed traffic cameras, saying it's a scam against motorists. So he says the Elmwood place is engaged in nothing more than a high-tech game of three-card Monte. So that's what the judge wrote, referring to a card game used by con artists. It's a scam that motorists can't win. You can go in there and check it out. Links will be posted. 11 things that the Obama administration is doing to promote more illegal immigration. So it's not just people think Mexico, but it's not just that. It's also China. It's also India. And these are people that are going to replace jobs that if we had our crap together in America, we'd be able to provide those skills so we can do it in-house, as they say. So part of the getting rid of U.S. sovereignty and that is what? The administration using sequester cuts as an excuse to cut border security to the bone. So you know that they had this plan 20, 30 years ago. And CNN is reporting that 60,000 border agents will soon be facing mandatory furloughs. DHS is also releasing 10,000 illegal immigrants that are held in detention centers. We saw that before. Something they're dubbing backdoor amnesty says that DHS head Napolitano has implemented a case-by-case review of all deportation cases involving illegal immigrants. Says those that have committed crimes will be prioritized and almost all the rest will be thrown out. Yeah, this is from the Daily Caller. I don't know if you caught that article. The Obama administration wants immigrants to know that just because they are getting food stamps, that does not mean that it will hurt their chances of becoming U.S. citizens. The federal government that actually has a website teaching immigrants on how to sign up for welfare programs. That's what it's all about. And like I said, what happens here happens in the UK. Most of you already are aware of that, and vice versa. And they're doing in the UK. It's to get foreigners to drain the national social system, right, where the people are already having problems with employment. The economists who predicted that opening UK borders to 10 new EU countries in 2004 would increase the population by 13,000 a year has accused MPs of misinterpreting his figures. So the professor says his 13,000 EU migrants report is misinterpreted. So politicians said the forecast was spectacularly wrong and laughable. They say actual immigration was 1,373% higher than forecasted. Sephardic Jews invited back to Spain after 500 years. More than 500 years ago, tens of thousands of Jews fled Spain because of persecution. Now their descendants are being invited to return. They were also expelled from England in 1290, 200 years before the Spanish Inquisition, similar to France and a number of European countries. It wasn't until 1650s that Jews were allowed to live in England again. And pretty interesting picture I saw. Holy Week in southern Spain is full of ancient imagery. This is what they have in the article. If anybody knows what that is, please write in the comment board. Ethnic Hungarians rally for this Zekler land autonomy. Land sits in 3 Romanian counties, the first 2 of which have majority Hungarian populations. They say their land must become autonomous region, and this must be enshrined in legislation. They also said we are protesting against the government's regionalization draft, which threatens our people's existence. Roman Catholic Church feels Europe slipping from its hands. So it goes in there and talks about striving to protect families based on the indissoluble marriage between a man and a woman. But it says within 72 hours, Portugal declared that they would sign a bill allowing gay and lesbian couples to wed. So with Spain having granted such rights 5 years earlier, the move turned the entire Iberian Peninsula, historically a Catholic stronghold, into an unlikely hitching post for homosexuals. So New York City's Quinn launches bid to become first openly gay mayor. City Council Speaker launches campaign with a walk and talk. Italy's economy shrinks as EU leader warns of lost generation. This is why central planners are so scared of Italy's Beppe Grillo. He talks about the issue of money and the usury system. Check. Greek Prime Minister promises what? No more austerity measures for a recession-weary nation. Say Greece may still have to quit the euro, says a Merkel ally. Said there are big risks and they may have to leave the EU. We have Germany's anti-euro party is a nasty shock for Merkel. Political revolt against the euro construct. It says here, an end to this euro is the first line of the webpage for Alternative für Deutschland. Greek extremist Golden Dawn fosters ties with German neo-Nazis and Bavaria. Question is, will Europe's unemployment crisis spark a return for fascism? You can go in there and check it out. Italy is breeding radical parties deeply opposed to austerity policies currently in place. United Anti-Fascist Conference, Europe's anti-fascists warn of neo-Nazi rise. Experts say interest in zombies peaks when, as a culture, we feel disempowered. Thank you.